Welcome back. So, we are actually not working on the Galaxy today. Don't worry, it also hasn't got anywhere in case you haven't noticed. I like to post other videos. A lot of you have probably seen this thing languishing in the background while we are working on the Galaxy. So, this is what we're working on. First question, why are we working on the Galaxy? Well, I like doing a bunch of other stuff. I've got this project. I've been wanting to start on it for a really long time, and actually was getting ready to start on it when the Galaxy kind of fell into my lap. So I'm impatient. I want to work on it. That's really all there is to it. Nothing's wrong with the Galaxy. Still making progress on it. There should be a new video coming out here in a couple weeks. That actually I've got some kind of cool things that I'm gonna try. That probably would piss off some purists, but yeah, I quit caring about that a long time ago. So, what is this? Well, this is a 1986 Mazda B2000 that I have basically given the nickname of Project LS-2K. Why? Because it's getting an LS. I'm not an LS fanboy, but when it comes to certain things, they are really good about making pretty good power in a very small package. And small package. It's tiny. It really is. And B2000. Now, why didn't I do something like call it Project B2K? Well, I'm from Kansas, in the Wichita area, and we have unfortunately, a rather well-known individual that went by the name of BTK. And I want to stay way the hell away from anything to do with that jackass. So, we are not even going to come anywhere close to that, and Project LS2K. Why is this getting an LS in it? Well, this is going to be a project that I've wanted to do for a while, which is a drag and drive car. If you're not familiar with drag and drive, it's where you run your car in a series of drag strips in a certain area, and then you have to drive your car, any spare parts, tools, etc., using only your car, so your car in a trailer that is pulled by your car, to the next drag strip. And then you have to run quarter mile, drive to the next one, quarter mile. You can't have a sport crew, you can't have a trailer pulled by a truck following along. It's just you, your co-driver, and whatever you're carrying with you, and you can only be helped by other racers. It's actually really cool. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube. Mike Finnegan, all those guys. Jeff Lutz doing it. Tom Bailey. It's really kind of awesome. The one that finally decided that I want to do my own was actually Tom Bailey. I'll post the pictures up while I'm talking. But the coolest thing ever, at least for me, was seeing his car, 6 Seconds, the original, pulling a trailer. They were kind of in the southeast, and a hurricane hit, and it was absolutely pouring rain. So you see a 6-second, quarter-mile car, pro mod essentially, pulling a trailer in the pouring rain, and then the very next picture you see it parked underneath the gas station awning with a piece of cardboard draped over the engine compartment to keep the water out. And this is a several thousand horsepower car. It's pretty cool. So that was one of the things that really got me wanting to do it. And then following along with Alex Taylor's 55 build, that made me decide to just kind of go way off the deep end and turn this into a tube chassis car. There are also a lot of other reasons for that. The first of which is to fit into a category or certain class. A lot of that requires either a stock front suspension or stock rear suspension locations. Which is a problem with this truck. It has a torsion bar front suspension, which not the end of the world. However, there's no parts for these. You can get some drop spindles and stuff like that, but that's pretty much it. And they've got this weird screwy bolt pattern that has virtually no wheels and tires available for them. So that's one of the issues. The other issue is by the time you get an engine in it, a lot of that might have to change. So you've got an issue with the front end. The back end, it's got its own problem. So I'll bring it all over, and then you can check that out. All right, well, so here we are at the back end. And this brings up the other issue, which is they require the stock location rear suspension for a lot of the classes that this would probably be far more competitive in. And that's a bit of an issue because leaf springs, they're mounted right to the frame rails. So in case you're wondering, here to the frame rail is about 9 inches from outside the tire to here. This fender would actually hit this tire if it got lowered all the way. So you're stuck with essentially running a pizza cutter rear tire, which doesn't do well for drag racing. So, talked about the issue with the front suspension. Well, that's easy. You cut the front end off, you do a custom suspension. Back end. All right, we ignore classes and know that we're going to be in a class that we're not competitive in, which I really don't care about, and we cut the back end of the car off. That leaves like 3 feet of factory frame, and at that point you're probably better off doing what I'm doing, which is building a full tube chassis. So we're going to run a decent sized rear tire. Obviously run a pretty narrow front tire, but that lets us do a strut style suspension that we can customize and do whatever we want. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. That leads to a few other issues of we're going to be in a really fast class, probably unlimited, and we're going to have a twin turbo LS that is not known for making unlimited class levels of power. So that's got a couple issues. So what are we going to do about that? So lack of power. Well, the first thing is by doing a decent sized rear tire, hopefully we can have good traction and not have to worry about spinning the tires at every single track. So that's kind of strategy number 1. Strategy number 2 is we're going to add lightness. How are we going to do that? Well, first of all, like I said, this truck is small. Wheelbase wise, it is actually pretty comparable to a Fox Body Mustang. Those aren't exactly known for being big. And this is a truck. It's tiny. It's actually jacked up in the air and it's still shorter than me and I'm far from tall. So that's one of the reasons is we're starting with this really small car, which power to weight ratio. In addition to that, because I'm a glutton for punishment, we're actually going to make a lot of these body panels and replace them with fiberglass. I'd like to do carbon fiber, but carbon fiber is expensive and we're realistically not even on a fiberglass budget, but we're going to make it work anyways. So that involves hood, front fenders, doors, and if everything goes right, actually the entire bed. Well, a lot of it's going to get cut out. There's no bed floor. And then it's just going to have like a tonneau cover that's going to also be fiberglass along with the bed sides and even the tailgate. Adding lightness, can't afford to compete with everyone on power. So by making this light, hopefully we can kind of get the system to work in our favor just a little bit. We're still going to be well slower than all the big names in there, but hopefully we can at least be reliable and make a good pass at every single track by not having to worry about overpowering the track. Famous last word, good luck. It's probably not going to happen, but you know what? I wanted to build a tube chassis car, so I'm doing what I want, and I want to do drag and drive, so it's more for me than trying to be competitive. So here you can see the LS that's in it in all its dusty glory. No, actually, it's a 2-liter 4-cylinder. And it's tiny. It makes all of like 80 horsepower. It's got a header, so it makes 81. Most of those still probably left the chat about 2 decades ago. But this is where we're going to try and shoehorn a twin-turbo LS into. I actually do already have the engine for it. I have a 6-liter LQ4. And like I said, we're going to try and shoehorn it into here. There's not a lot of room, clearly. But that's kind of going to be one of the challenges. But that's one more reason why we're going to go tube chassis, because then we aren't having to work around all the limitations that the factory layout poses. We can kind of start from more of a clean slate and not have to worry about that. All right, so it's a tiny truck. It's going to be hard to fit everything in. Gone over a lot of that stuff. So why choose this specific one? Well, the first thing is it's different. No one does that. In case you haven't noticed, I have a Mustang SVO that not many people have because they didn't make very many of them. I'm restoring a 1959 Galaxy that was an abandoned project and in a flood, which no one does, and most people turn that into parts. Yeah, kind of glutton for punishment. But it is inexpensive, or was when I bought it, and it is a good combination of good enough to be a solid starting point, and just terrible enough that I don't feel bad cutting it up. Which there's a lot to that, because there's a lot of cars that I actually would feel bad cutting up. My SVO being one of them, that's why it's mostly stock. This one, they made a ton of them. They're not exactly sought after. And this one, while being fairly solid, the bed does have quite a bit of rust to it. So I don't feel bad. The interior was trashed. So right now it's got, I think, Miata bucket seats in it, and everything else is pulled out. So it's just one of those, like I said, good starting point, but terrible enough I don't feel bad cutting it up. So now that I've kind of gone over why we're building this one, what it's going to be, sorry for rambling on. What are we going to work on first? Well, we're going to work on something really exciting, which is bodywork. Yeah, doesn't really make much sense, but there actually is a method to my madness, which is we're going to start putting on new body panels. The passenger side front fender is a little tweaked, and then we've got some more plastic bumper corners to put on and stuff like that. The reason is that, like I said earlier, we're making fiberglass molds of a lot of this, which means all the body lines that are on the panels are going to end up in the final pieces. So by doing the bodywork now, that means hopefully that once I have the fiberglass stuff, there's a lot less bodywork that I need to do. When it's all together, it's stock, the frame's still under it, and it's not in a million pieces. All these are going to line up as good as they ever were, which is going to give me at least a bit of an advantage when it does come time to making the fiberglass stuff fit later. So there's the method to my madness, maybe. Still debatable. I'm doing this project. Let's be honest here. But that's where we're going to start. Trying to get this all squared away. Like I said, when all the body lines are lined up. So first thing that we're going to do is actually start working on the front passenger fender and get that going. So with the very, very long explanation that hopefully I can cut down, let's get started working on something on this. So aside from a little bit of rust in the back rear quarters, this is the worst part of the car, where it has clearly taken a bit of a hit at some point. The grille has been replaced, so don't have to worry about that, but we do have this plastic bumper end cap and this fender that is a little bit misshapen. Good news about this car is that you can actually get a lot of body panels for it. It's not something that I would think you'd be able to get, but front fenders are one of them. So I do have a new front fender. It's just a cheapo one, but hopefully it works good enough. And I do have some new bumper end caps. We might have to do a little bit of work on the front bumper to get it to fit correctly. But in general, this is where we're going to start. And hopefully we can get a little bit of progress made on it. Well, the good news is I have no idea what I'm doing taking this apart. So that's going to make things a lot of fun. Maybe. Probably not. Seems like a logical place to start. Alright, grill is off. It's actually in pretty good shape. Like I said, I think it's been replaced after that corner took a hit. There's one little crack in it back here, but it is plastic, so hopefully it can just plastic weld that and be good as new. Alright, now that we got the grill and side marker lights out of the way, we're going to start working on getting this bumper and this fender off. I'm not really sure which one's going to come off first, so we might just start taking bolts out and hope one of them comes off, falls off, something. Mud Dubber Nest. Well, now that I have this out of the way, I'm going to go grab the other fender and we're going to see just how terribly it fits. It's aftermarket and cheap, and those two things usually don't go well together. I mean, technically, most of the time, cheap or aftermarket, neither one of those work well with body panels, and I've got both, so we might be in for a bit of an issue. Hopefully not, but we'll find out soon. Well, here we have the new fender. Like I said, this is a super cheap one, so hopefully it fits good enough to where it's at least better than what the other one was that was original to this car. So, gonna grab the bolts, we're gonna start bolting this up and kind of see how it goes. Your guess is as good as mine. We at least have what I would call an acceptable panel gap. And by acceptable, I mean it's no worse than the other side, which is good. There's actually very little that needed done to this fender. A little bit of just kind of bending. We got this part out, mostly even with the door. So when it does finally come time to make a fiberglass mold of this fender, it's going to be still, this one wants to pop out at the bottom, but at the very least we know that it is going to fit as good as anything ever did, which is exactly what we want. Well, now it's time to work on the front bumper. This end cap is fine. This one needs replaced, and then the bumper is bent. You can see the bends here, and there's actually another little one here that I didn't even know about. So to straighten all that, we need to get all this stuff off and just have this little C-channel piece so we can see what we can do to straighten it. So that's what we're going to work on now. Somehow. It'll come apart. Well, there may not have been a lot of grinding involved, but we finally got the valence off. It survived at least as good as can be. There was a little bit of damage to this hole and one at the other side, but that was already there. So I guess there are 2 holes at the other side, but basically managed to get it out without damaging it worse than it already was. Let me put it that way. So we're going to put this in a safe spot. Unfortunately, we've got more stuck bolts that are all rusted together, where the heads of them are actually going into the plastic. So I'm going to get back to cutting with a cutoff wheel, and yeah, I'll see you when this is all taken apart. Well, that took entirely way too long, but we are now down to essentially the bare bumper. There's a few little clips and stuff that I'm not going to worry about, but we're as good as we need to get. Still have a little bit of cleanup to do on the end caps because there's still some stuck fasteners in those, but we'll get those out at some point. We'll just have to make sure to keep them nice and cool so we don't melt the plastic. That's been one of the things that's really slowed me down, was trying to cut all these fasteners that are going into plastic so you can't heat them up because they will just melt. At least I'm assuming they will. I just didn't push it, so it took way too long, like I said. So looking at the bumper, the big damage is there's a little bit here, but the actual bumper itself looks fairly straight. Probably just that little corner. And then the other piece is right here where it's definitely not straight. So that's going to take a little bit of work. But we're going to see what we can do to get this straight and hopefully not have to buy a new one, because that would really kind of suck. Well, if there's ever additional reinforcement that I'm an amateur at this, it's how long it took me to straighten out this front bumper. Not all of it was my fault, because a little bit of a whiskey dent over there on that side as well. That one was pretty easy to straighten out. This big old dent over here did take quite a bit to where I was happy with not only the profile going this way, but also this way, as well as fixing this end so that the bumper end cap could fit. One thing I haven't decided is if I'm going to keep the holes for front license plate bracket. Right now, I don't see any reason to keep them, but also don't really know if there's really that much of a reason to get rid of them. So it might be one of those things where I just plug it and then come back later, and if it's there if I need to. But if you guys all think of a reason why I should keep it, put a comment below. I'm always open to suggestions, and not a pro at this, so if you know something that I don't, I'll be happy to take your advice. Now that we're essentially done with the front end, the next thing that we're going to start working on that does have a ton of dents that are going to need to be pounded out is the tailgate. Now that we got the tailgate removed, I'll go over why I want to try and work on this one as opposed to just buying a replacement one, because this one is pretty rough. And the reason is right here where it says Mazda. Most of the replacements that I can find are all flat. This one actually has kind of the embossed, whatever you want to call it, logo in it, which I think is kind of cool, and I haven't been able to find a replacement that has that is even remotely reasonably priced. That means that we're going to work on this one. Worst case scenario, if I really got desperate, I could cut this out and weld it into a replacement one. But I think between pounding out some of the dents and just covering over everything with Bondo, because again, this is just going to be a template for a fiberglass mold. I think I can get this good enough to do that. The next step is to strip this whole tailgate down. So that's going to involve removing all the brackets, bumpers, hinges, all of that stuff, so we can start working on actually fixing the tailgate. You're going to see that, however, on the next episode. Well, that means it's the end of this episode. Well, if you're interested in following along with this project, make sure you subscribe. I'll be posting videos of this and of the Galaxy project, probably alternating because I have the attention span of a gnat. But that also means that you get kind of varied content. So, like I said, if you're interested, make sure to follow along, where we'll keep going on both of these projects. And until next time, I'll see you all later.